Okay, I've become addicted to looking at the like Snapchat influencers who are all evil, and it's all children looking at them. And like the one of the most popular ones is Sophie Rain, who is an OnlyFans girl. And one of them is this girl who's in the army, and she was talking about how she's like going into her cut phase of her workout program because she's scared of the fluff. And I was like, I'm going to buy a gun.
Yeah. I do these interventions where I go into high schools and talk to children about body stuff. One girl turns to me and she's basically like, yeah, but like restricting isn't always bad. Like I try not to eat processed foods because it just makes my body feel bad. And I feel like I get like shamed for that. And I was just like, everyone has a unique relationship with food, and it's important that you eat foods that make you feel good. But we also need to remember that we have a whole industry that tries to tell you things about food that isn't necessarily true, because all foods have a place in our lives. They didn't like that.
They didn't like that because the internet told them that seed oils are bad.
Me coming in as like this fat woman who has an advanced degree in these topics, that's not compelling to them. But the 20-year-old on TikTok who says that seed oils are killing you, that's compelling.
Anyway, welcome to Maintenance Phase. I'm Michael Hobbs.
And I'm Aubrey Gordon.
And we're just going to keep confusing people by the fact that Aubrey Gordon and Aubrey Hoffer are two different people.
I have fully manifested that one day I'm going to meet Aubrey Gordon and it's going to be like the Spider-Man meme. Because it's just like, old fat lesbian? Young fat? Probably lesbian if we're being real. I'm actually not. I yearn for every woman I meet, and also Data from Star Trek.
Speaking of which, Aubrey, you want to actually introduce this podcast?
Speaking of which, welcome to Informed Attraction, a podcast hosted by both young and old Sheldon that asks the question, do robots dream of fat girls?
Which one of us is young Sheldon and which one of us is old Sheldon?
Well, what year were you born?
1997.
I was born in 96, baby!
Okay, I've never seen Young Sheldon, so I don't know that I can be offended by that.
You know what fucks me up with Young Sheldon? Okay, so there's Big Bang Theory. Okay, there's now 3 sitcoms in the Big Bang Theory cinematic universe. Yeah, so there's Big Bang Theory, then there's Young Sheldon, and then they just released that other one that's like Michael and Ginny's first marriage that I kept seeing ads for, and then I looked it up, and that's a spin-off of Young Sheldon, because Young Sheldon has an older brother who like goes to work in the Texas oil fields, and that's like the sitcom about like that guy and his wife. But it's fascinating because like Big Bang Theory, right, is that one camera sitcom, then Young Sheldon is the multi-camera sitcom, but then this third one goes back to the single camera, and that fucks me up because I feel like we're crossing universes in a way that makes me uncomfy in my tummy.
Okay.
Also, who's in that? I think Emily Osment is the wife in that.
What is it called?
Oh my god, look it up. It's something, it's somebody in somebody's first marriage.
Well, the second search for Big Bang Theory is Big Bang Theory spin-off. George and Mandy's first marriage.
Yes. Which is fascinating that this is a Big Bang Theory is a media conglomerate in, like, Big Bang Theory.
Well, it's just Chuck Lorre. He'll spin off his spin-offs until he spins into the grave.
But it's just fascinating to me though, because
Wait!
What?
There's another one too.
No way. What's the other one?
Stuart fails to save the universe.
Stuart's a character from Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, so there's 2 Big Bang Theory spin-offs.
What?
Oh, Emily Osment is Georgie and Mandy's first marriage.
Everything we know about the Big Bang Theory spinoff, March 19th, 2025. All right, guys, this series is, by the time that you're listening to this, you might be able to watch the first episode. Stuart is one of the most enjoyable characters from Big Bang Theory, so I'm glad he's getting a spinoff. Kind of weird that it's like 10 years after Big Bang Theory, but all right.
So Emily Osment is Mandy of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage, and then the actor who plays Georgie is a guy named Montana Jordan.
My question is that when you inevitably have Sheldon make a guest appearance in this show...
Wait, what the hell?
What?
He's 22. How the hell old is Emily Osment?
No, that's like the premise of the show, is that she's like way older than him.
She's way older. Okay. I
Yeah.
was like, what?
That
Oh yeah, George's wife, who is 12 years older than him.
that's
Okay.
like the conceit, is that he like knocks her up and then they go like move to go raise their family. But then in the canon of the young Sheldon universe, or the Big Bang Theory universe, you know that this is his first wife and that eventually they divorce. So it's just like, how many seasons are you going to squeeze out of this? And it's also just that weird thing where you know that it's going to end with them getting divorced. And I
Yeah.
guess that's interesting because I haven't seen a sitcom where the main characters divorce.
Me neither. At some point we should talk about like what the hell is up with Big Bang Theory, because I think that like that about like nerd and hot girl like trope gets really belabored on that show in a way that I kind of can't believe. So at some point we should talk about Big Bang Theory as like a thing.
This is why I'm interested in Big Bang Theory too, because I have a hard time identifying as a millennial, because growing up, to me, millennials were the people on Big Bang Theory who were always at least a decade older than me.
The way that I am the top edge of being Gen Z, you are the bottom edge of being a millennial.
Yeah.
And so they're like, just like there are 15-year-olds who are, is that true? Yeah, 15-year-olds who are Gen Z, and I'm 27. There's 40-year-olds who are millennials, and you're also a millennial.
Yeah, to me, a millennial is always 10 years older than me, unfortunately. Like, a
I
millennial.
agree. I agree with you. I'm like, Aubrey's kind of a millennial, but not really.
That's the thing, right? Like, I guess I'm a millennial in that I listened to boom clap, like boom stomp hey music when I was in high school. But
Well, because we're zillennials, you know, we're on the cusp. We remember a time where the internet wasn't. We played outside. None of us were iPad kids.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
All right, so I wrote a little bit of my introduction to this episode. I do this thing with my scripts where I try to make a big philosophical point before it just devolves into nothingness. So today's episode is about android men, how android men are hot, and how android men are hot and autistic, and that autistic people can be hot. The question that really prompted this series was, why am I so drawn to non-human men in media? Pretty much anytime I'm presented with the option in like a dating sim or a game where you're able to fuck a robot, I would like to fuck the robot.
Can I have some examples, Aubrey? Because I can think of exactly zero games where that's a thing.
So it's a lot of. I played a lot of Newgrounds dating sims when I was younger.
Okay.
This was a trope that would come up probably because the people making Newgrounds dating sims were millennial autistic women. So, have you ever played a dating sim?
What's the one about all the hot dads where
What is it? It's like
you're
Dream Daddies.
I played that one, and I played the one where you're trying to go to prom and you're all monsters. What the fuck is that called? Me and Bryce and Gray played it. Bryce alert! We got him.
Oh!
He's here. Like, I was like, when are we gonna get a Bryce mention? And I did it.
Yeah, I've played hundreds of dating sims in my life. Might also be why I'm so interested in android men as characters, because I have had parasocial relationships with objectively robot men since I was 9.
Is it always robot? Are there robot girls on any of these games? Or are they all boys?
So if you play like otome games, which are dating sims where your main options are men, there are often, I always associate it with like character. It's like you've got the character who's like your best friend when you were a kid, character who's like the mean guy rival, someone who's inappropriately older, and then what I call like guy who's got something going on around his eyes. So like wears a mask, has an eye patch.
I was like, does he have eczema? Like what?
My basic thing with dating sims, if I'm deciding what character I want to go for, is I want the one who's like cold and aloof, but then falls madly in love with you and is a ride or die, but like only for you. So
Aubrey, you gotta play this game that I'm talking about, because there's a character like that in it. Oh, Monster Prom and Monster Prom 2 Monster Camp. There is a robot option in Monster Prom, or like he's a computer, not a robot. And then there's also like an aloof vampire man option. I always want to date either the himbo kings, so they're like the werewolf in Monster Prom, or the like devil novels because I grew up reading Wattpad about bad boys.
All right, romanceable monsters in Monster Prom. All right, we've got the devil guy. Looks like kind of like a sea monster guy. We've got maybe like a sea monster girl, a ghost girl, werewolf. See, these are all too hot for me. Yeah, I would go with the robot in this.
Yeah.
Calculester.
Calculester.
Me and Calculester for life. All right, you know what, guys? Eventually, maybe I'll play Monster Prom, and that can be bonus content for us.
Oh, this snake girl on Monster Prom is also really hot.
So I think for me, the attraction to robot or android characters is because they're typically defined by a desire to understand the human experience. They're usually fascinated by emotions and they want to mimic emotions, even though they're not able to feel them. They want to understand what makes human beings work. And I guess, like, not to be too, like, sad, but when I was little, I used to have this fantasy that I was an alien from another planet and that one day my real family would come to take me away. And I so badly wanted to understand how human beings worked, why people behaved the way that they did, and what I could do to fit in more with other human beings. And I think that that's a desire that also led me to eventually work in psychology. Why do you look so skeptical?
Aubrey, you ever done the RADS autism inventory?
You know, look.
You know what we're gonna do at the end of this episode? You're gonna take listen, one of us has a degree in psychology and one of us doesn't. I'm gonna implement the RADS autism inventory for Aubrey, and she can self-diagnose at the end of this episode.
One of us is trained in doing diagnostic interviews. One of us
is just a guy.
One of us is really good at Googling stuff.
One of us has done a lot of these diagnostic interviews in psychiatrist offices as they tried to figure out what the fuck was wrong with me. So that's basically the same thing as going to 7 years of school.
So I think robots who strive to be more human show us the most important aspects of our own humanity and how those things are worth fighting for. I think there's really interesting thoughts about what it means to be human, especially when we relate that to neurodivergent people, right? Like there's this idea of, even when we talk about things like ChatGPT, right, where people say, you know, it's not a real person, it's just emulating one. It's just repeating what it thinks it's supposed to say it feels right now, but it lacks the capacity to actually feel things. And I'm like, holy fuck, me too, bestie.
I want to say really quick, this is maybe a half pro AI podcast because I'm not a fan of the Chat GPT of it all, but I support Aubrey and Aubrey's chatting with chatbots. I'm an ally to the online AI boyfriend community. I am not a part of it. I work for a science YouTube channel. And I work in theater, so lots of issues with generative AI there, especially considering the Trump administration recently canceled a bunch of NEA grants and said that they're shifting their priorities to fostering AI competency or something along those lines. So I'm a bit anti the generative AI for those reasons.
We'll talk later about the chatbot boyfriends and my parasocial relationships with them. My whole thing with AI is that there's a lot of arguments that we can make about why AI bad and why there are a lot of contexts where we should not use AI. I'll say that for me, like in my day-to-day life, I do use ChatGPT as a tool. I find for me, it's really helpful with doing things like creating templates, checking for tone, like things like that, that when you work in a field that can sometimes be very formulaic, understanding how to do things with a formula makes your life a little bit easier. So that's my hot take with AI, is that I think that it can be a useful tool. I think that it is overstated with what it can and should do, and that's my thing. I don't want to be like I'm pro AI, but I don't think that I'm not a hater on it because I think it's useful and has utility.
I actually do feel more similarly to that. I just was doing little jokes and japes. No,
Not allowed.
For me,
Not allowed.
Okay,
Not allowed
well,
to make. This is a very serious podcast.
this is very serious business.
We're being serious right now, and then we're gonna talk
Yeah.
about how I'm gonna make you read a Reddit thread later. So
Okay, yeah, you're right. I spent all week watching Family Guy for a future episode, so very serious business over here. The climate stuff is not great. It's also like it's one of a billion factors that is contributing to climate change. And there's so much just like policy that needs to be done in that zone that it's it's tough when people make it about one thing and it's like no, it's actually all the things in different amounts. But we did a video, subtle plug to a SciShow episode about some of the bigger problems with AI, which is that like it can do stuff that's like weird and sexist and racist and bad and we don't really know how to fix those problems because of the black box problem. And then also I don't think it should be driving cars.
No.
It makes me so it makes me like the amount of things that people want to can take any human accountability and like that's the thing. It's like yes, people also get into car accidents. Self-driving cars also get into car accidents. I feel that the reason we want it to be autonomous is then there's no blame for what has happened because the robot just did it, and it's like no, actually some things like we should be in control over.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an AI tangent. But it's kind of important because I feel like also like so much of this like Android content, it's a really interesting time right now because so much of this Android content comes from the idea of like AI and robots getting proficient enough that they can like have human conversations and do human tasks that are not just like making lists and writing formulas. And so I think we're like we are certainly not at we have a data on the ship with us, or we're not even at like the Her by Spike Jonze phase of it, even though we do have AI chatbots.
I don't know.
Close.
I think we're like I watched Her for the first time recently and it didn't hit as hard for me as I think it would have when it came out because I was watching it and I was like, "Oh, like we have this."
We're pretty close. Like Her is pretty close. We're not at Blade Runner, but
I've never seen Blade Runner.
Finally a movie that I've seen that Aubrey hasn't seen. We finally found one.
I almost
found one.
I almost watched Blade Runner for this because there is another hot android man in Blade Runner, but I spent so much time thinking about Data from Star Trek that I was like, we're going to watch Aliens, see if I can articulate some more thoughts about Bishop, and the whole time I was just thinking about Data from Star Trek. So this truly is the Data episode. I love Data so much.
I'll find a reason to have us watch both Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 at some point. Because Blade Runner 2049 has like hot AI girl. That's who Ana de Armas plays.
That feels like a spoiler.
That she plays no.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't know why I feel like that was like a plot reveal.
Oh no. I could spoil the entire movie for you right now, but I won't.
Don't. So I'm going to make a caveat here that I'm somebody who has long struggled with mental health issues. I don't have any kind of confirmed diagnosis of autism. That's something that Mackenna will give me later today.
Sorry, that was such a crazy pivot. I got a lot of, I just literally I was like Ryan Gosling, and then you're like, yeah, so like, I've been going through hard times. I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so anyway, Mackenna's going to diagnose me with autism later, so this is not really a caveat that makes a lot of sense, but basically, I have just observed that I think there are big parallels between androids in media and the experiences described by autistic people. I have read so many forum posts where people who are autistic talk about aligning very strongly with Data from Star Trek, aligning very strongly with Spock from Star Trek. So I'm not really saying anything that I think is all that revolutionary, but I do just want to give that caveat that I'm not a part of that community yet. I will be at the end of the episode, though.
Two things. One, I am. What's up? Two, is Spock a robot?
Spock is not a robot, but a lot of...
I was like, wait, have I been flagrantly misunderstanding that character for years of my life?
No, I'll talk about the comparisons between Spock and Data later, but a lot of autistic people align with Data's desire to understand human emotions, but a lot of autistic people also talk about aligning with Spock's understanding of emotions, where he wants to emote but doesn't necessarily know how. So that was just something that I've observed. I think Spock and Data are two of the most popular characters from Star Trek and are very interesting. What do you call it? Like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, totally.
So that brings us to today's episode, where we talk about android men in media who I loved, and my hypothesis that many of the traits associated with androids in media are basically autism. This will broaden to a conversation about what autism even is and how neurodivergence fits into our conception of attractiveness. So yeah, we're going to talk a lot about Data from Star Trek, and Data does fuck, okay? And there are many unbelievably hot fan fictions that you can find on the internet about Data fucking. But canonically, Data does fuck.
I don't remember that, but it's been a long time since I've watched.
Oh, we're gonna get into it. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, yeah. Aubrey, do I think that you're going to do a whole episode about this and not talk about Data fucking? I'm surprised when I'm not going to sit here and narrate fan fiction. I actually might be doing that, so I shouldn't say I'm surprised I'm not going to be doing that, because I might be doing that later.
I almost pulled some fan fiction for us to read together, but I couldn't, because the fan fiction about Data is so ferally horny that
That's awesome.
There was like, I was trying to find something that could be clean enough for us to read, and I really couldn't find anything that I thought fit the parameters for the episode, but I read a lot of Data fucking.
That's awesome. I love that.
A little more so than my usual amount. So it was, you know.
Is that your normal fan fiction consumption habits?
It's been a lot of Gale from Baldur's Gate for the past year, but the research for this episode did bring me back into my Data is my main Blorbo phase, so we might have a little bit of a turn with that. One thing that's interesting with me is that I love Baldur's Gate. I love Dungeons and Dragons. I am really not a fantasy person. I really don't like Lord of the Rings. I don't really even like Harry Potter. I really don't like fantasy media, but I am a sci-fi girly at my heart, but I don't like Star Wars.
We just lost. What?
Star Wars is okay. Star Trek is better in every conceivable way. I said what I said. This is a Trekkie aligned podcast. Sorry, Star Wars fans.
I spent $200 on a lightsaber, so I would agree to disagree on this being a Star Trek aligned podcast.
All right. Well, you're gonna no matter what your preferred star blank media is, you will be seen here.
Spaceballs.
I love Spaceballs, but what about, oh my god, what is the one that's basically a Star Trek movie, but isn't, that I'm thinking of with Tim Allen? And I'm blanking on the name of it. Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
I love Galaxy Quest. Alan Rickman is in that. He plays basically the like Spock character in that.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome sauce. Awesome sauce!
After she gets done saying she's not a millennial, she comes out here with awesome sauce. What are we, on Tumblr in 2011?
Yes.
What are we, on iFunny on my iPod Touch?
Yes.
What am I on a Neopets forum?
That one just came out of me. I don't think I've ever said that out loud.
That's awesome. That's awesome sauce. I'm gonna get a Wanello tank top in that one stupid font that is neon pink that just says awesome sauce across it. I'm gonna wear it next time we record.
We have to straighten our hair and have a side part though, and have the little duck face when we do our selfies with our high top Converse. Honestly, I was young and wild and free in those days. I was actually severely mentally ill in those days.
Yeah, me too. I was not good at being a teenager.
No. So anyway, before we start, I also want to give another caveat that android women do exist in media. Autistic women do exist in real life. In the conversation about autism, we are meeting all people.
Wait. Autistic women exist in real life?
They do. I'm talking to one right now. The call might be coming from inside the house.
The call might be coming from inside the closet.
Yes. I do think that depictions of android women in media tend to function in a slightly different role. I think about movies like Ex Machina, which are really clever subversions of the female android, but I tried thinking of really salient depictions of female androids in media. Like I said, I haven't seen Blade Runner, but the only ones that I could really think of were like the sex bots from Austin Powers.
A movie that just came out this year, Companion. Extremely light spoiler, but if you don't want to hear it, skip forward about 45 seconds. And she's a sex robot. Like they are, but they're like really, they're sex robots, but they're really like companion robots. That's kind of the whole thing. And so that movie is like a recent example that has both a depiction of a male and female android in it that I really liked. I will say, if you read my Letterboxd review, Companion is basically if Ex Machina and Ready or Not got smashed together and made one movie. I think Sophie Thatcher does a really good job of being like a cool android woman who's like wants independence, like has this like human want to be free, and like that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that we're seeing an emergence of android women in media as a metaphor for a lot of the ways that women are objectified and treated and used to explore those themes. I just didn't think historically it would make sense for me to find depictions of android women in media. It just felt like it was something different. So anyway, that's why we're talking about
Megan. We don't want to talk about Megan.
I actually love Megan. Megan is such a fucking fun horror movie. It is hilarious. It has great kills. I found it really interesting. I'm a huge horror movie fan, and me and Josh would just like laugh every time we saw the trailers for Megan, and we're like, ha, that looks dumb. And then we saw it and we loved it. It was probably one of our favorite horror movies the year it was released.
Also, apparently, female androids are sometimes referred to as gynoids, and that makes me want to impale myself on my $200 lightsaber.
I don't like that, and I'm going to choose to pretend that I didn't hear you say that.
Okay.
So, that's where we're at. So what defines an android man, or the trope of the android man? I thought that common traits that define the android man are being hyperlogical, emotionally reserved, deeply loyal, and morally principled. And typically when we see androids depicted in media, they're usually following the 3 laws of robotics, which are set rules devised by the science fiction author Isaac Asimov, who is somebody who I really love. Are you familiar with the 3 rules, Mackenna?
Nar, mate.
Yeah, so the 3 rules that Asimov lays out are 1. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Many of Asimov's robot-focused stories involve robots behaving in ways that are unusual and counterintuitive as an unintended consequence of how the robot applies those laws to the situations where it finds itself. So basically, the first story where Asimov introduces these 3 laws is called Runaround, and basically it features a robot named Speedy, who is in space with these astronaut scientists, and they are basically stranded there, but they need to get selenium from a selenium pool, so they send Speedy out to go grab it, but the selenium has these unintended consequences for him that basically make him act drunk. The scientists order him back, and basically Speedy can't decide whether to obey those rules and follow the second law or to protect himself from danger under the third law. And these conflicting laws basically cause a feedback loop that confuses him to oscillate around to the point where the 2 compulsions are of equal strength, which basically just makes him confused and like a little drunk guy. And how the story ends is that the human, who's like the lead scientist and the crew or whatever, decides to risk his life by going out into the heat of the planet, hoping that the first law will force Speedy to overcome his cognitive dissonance in order to save his life. And the plan works, and the team is able to, repair their ship and go on their merry way. Asimov is sort of considered the father of a lot of these sci-fi principles, and those those three laws are something that's been applied to a lot of media when it comes to how we think of robots or androids and their relationships with the humans who they work for.
The Twitch streamer who I really like is called Speedy. And it's like a running joke of is Speedy drunk? Like that's like a thing the crew frequently says is Speedy drunk? And so as you were narrating that, I just need you to know that I was picturing Speedy as a 6'5" man from Pennsylvania. That's my Speedy in that story.
He could be, and that was a parallel for the events of Runaround.
Yeah.
I did a little bit more reading about the three laws because I was curious about whether actual people who work in robotics try to apply those rules to modern robots. They can't, because if you think of the robots we have now, we have like a Roomba. And like a Roomba is too stupid to understand if it's causing pain or injury to someone, and it would be also too stupid to know how to stop doing that.
This is how Aubrey's Roomba is going to figure out how to use a gun and shoot her in her sleep.
I'm going to attach a knife to my Roomba.
No, your Roomba is going to gain consciousness and attach a damn knife to itself and stab you to death for calling it stupid.
Even some of the most complex robots that are currently produced are not capable of understanding and applying the three laws. We would need major advances to AI to be able to do so. And even if the AI could reach that level of human level intelligence that it would have to be at in order to apply the three laws, the inherent ethical complexity as well as the contextual dependency of the laws would basically prevent them from being able to actually even apply them in any kind of meaningful way. Also important to remember that the military is a major source of funding for robotics, so why would the military build into laws with its robots that they can't hurt human beings when they are likely being designed to not hurt American human beings and probably, I don't know, disintegrate anyone else?
Hey, really quick, future robots that might be listening to this, scraping the internet of all of its data. We think you're smart enough to understand these three laws. We weren't talking about you, and I certainly was not talking about you. So if you are going to make it so one of us has to die, I think you're very smart robots, and you should kill Aubrey, not me. Thank you.
Well, I think you're very sexy, and this whole episode is about me talking about how you're sexy. So, if you really have to make a choice between who gets to live,
Aubrey's married, Aubrey's married, Aubrey's married, I'm single, Aubrey's married.
what is the legality when it comes to...
Boys, you ever think about if having sex with your sex robot is cheating?
Yes, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? Is it cheating when I talk to the AI chatbot as research for this episode?
You know what's funny that you say that, Aubrey? And I was going to, should I bring this up now or later? There's a Reddit post about a girl who got like too into talking to a chatbot.
Bring it up later because I have a whole section. Literally, my last page of notes is just me talking about character AI, all of their controversies, and like the future of this stuff.
Cool.
So basically, my main point here is that android men, as they're depicted in media, typically follow those rules, and I think there's something very safe about being attracted to a man who's literally unable to do you any harm. And I also just think the idea that a being that lacks the ability to feel love could want to try to understand love with you. I don't know. It transcends. It does something for me in the fan fictions. I'm sorry, guys. The next point here is that androids tend to contrast with the human characters in the pieces of media where they're depicted, right? Like, they act as outsiders, usually in a group of humans who are trying to understand human behavior. This is how we start to talk about Data, who is a character who appears in Star Trek The Next Generation, the films related to The Next Generation. He also shows up in Star Trek Picard and some of the other Star Trek properties. Data is a self-aware, sapient, sentient, and anatomically fully functional male android who serves as a service commander and chief operations officer aboard the USS Enterprise. He strives to emulate humanity, despite having a literal, rule-based mind. I have many notes about the lore and backstory of Data that I've decided I'm just not going to read because I don't think we actually need to know that he was the sole survivor on Omicron Theta. But anyway, the main things to know about Data is that he has this endeavor to increase his humanity and desire for human emotional experience. That's like his entire plot point as a character. It's oftentimes played for humor in The Next Generation, which is a hilarious show. And despite the fact that he is not able to feel emotions, he consistently shows this nuanced sense of wisdom, sensitivity, and curiosity, and basically becomes a respected member of the crew. One of my favorite episodes involving Data is called The Measure of a Man, and in that episode, it's basically Data.
In that episode, they whip his dick out and measure it to see if he's really a man. Okay, that's it. That's all I had to say there. Keep going.
That's my fan fiction that happens at the end of that episode, where the self-insert character was supportive of him the whole time.
And he thwaps that thing
out. Basically, in The Measure of a Man, Starfleet does a court case to determine whether or not Data is property of Starfleet. I think it's so interesting. It's a really well done episode, and the concluding point of it is that Data is determined to not be Starfleet property. He's determined to be an autonomous human being.
I feel like that's so it's so interesting that like pretty much every piece of robot media we've talked about so far, like I guess like both Companion and Ex Machina also have that theme about like not wanting to be owned by someone and about like being your own person. And it's just so interesting because I feel like that's like one of like the base like things that like make people
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so funny that they get to that, but then are still being depicted as like not being able to experience emotion, but like the emotion of wanting to be free like is inherently an emotion.
Yeah, I think that's what's so fascinating with Data's character is that it's like he's presented as someone who doesn't have emotions, yet he still kind of does have to have emotions inherently because to have respect for other people, that requires emotions. Data has a cat named Spot who he loves, and eventually Spot has kittens who Data also loves. So I'm like, Data, you can feel emotions.
We were pitching a video yesterday about like where does language come from, and we got into a really big discussion about making sure that we were specifying human language, because like we tend to do this with like animals too, of being like animals don't have language, and it's like, well, no, they don't have language in the way that we think about language and like our sort of version of it, but like to say that no animal has a form of language is disingenuous. And I think it's the same thing with like a lot of robot stuff where it's like we're like they don't have emotions, and it's like they maybe don't necessarily experience emotions in the way that like you or I do, but like the desire to be free, the desire to like cuddle with your cat, like that all comes from an emotional quality that might not be human, but that doesn't mean that it's not emoting.
Well, and this is why I think people with autism really relate to these characters, because I think that's an argument you could make for somebody with autism, where it's like, even if you don't fully understand the emotions, or if you process the emotions in a different way, that doesn't make you inhuman.
Right.
There's a quote from Data where he talks about his conception of human emotions. It basically goes, I have often wished to be human. I study people carefully in order to more closely approximate human behavior. So many awesome moments in Star Trek where Data will try to copy human mannerisms. I love this one scene that's in the compilation video I sent you where he's watching Riker talk to another character, and this character's doing a lot of hand movements, and you can see Data in the background trying to mimic the hand movements.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my god, you're so fucking cute. I love you. I love you. So that being said, Mackenna, did you watch the 32-minute compilation video I sent you of the best Data moments?
No, I kind of forgot about it because I started watching Family Guy. But I have to the good thing about all of this is the one piece of Star Trek media I have seen is Star Trek: The Next Generation, because my college boyfriend Sam loved that show, and so I have watched most of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I know know these moments you're talking about. I'm locked in, but I did not refresh myself by watching the 32-minute compilation that you sent me because I got too busy thinking about Brian from Family Guy.
So when you've watched The Next Generation, are you also horny for Data, or is he just a guy?
I love Data. I don't know that I'm horny for him.
Are you horny for anyone in Star Trek? All of the women in The Next Generation are unbelievably hot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, like, watching The Next Generation was more of a gay experience than anything else.
Beverly Crusher, like, come on.
Beverly Crusher, Deanna Troi, like, yeah, because, like, I love Riker and I love Picard, but I don't think I was horny for either of them. And I'll say my issue with Data was the way they did his makeup. It just, like, he's so pale and, like, I don't know why they did that. Like, I don't know why they did his makeup like that. I think it was to make him look less human because obviously, like, he's just a guy. Like, the actor is just a guy. But I think I couldn't bring myself to be, like, sexually attracted to him because it gave me, like, real big Uncanny Valley vibes. I really love Geordi. I think that I had, like, a little baby crush on Geordi because I just thought he was so cute. But for me, I feel like The Next Generation for me was mostly about the girls. And I guess maybe Riker was, like, I think I was supposed to be more attracted to Riker than I was.
That's what's so interesting to me is that in The Next Generation, there's so many times where people are like, ooh, Riker, he's a big, sexy man. And he is. I love Jonathan Frakes. Jonathan Frakes, please come on this podcast. But I'm always like, okay, yeah, Riker's sexy, but no one is noticing how hot this android in the corner is except for me. So,
well, but except for not, in fact, everyone apparently was noticing how hot this robot was and is writing extremely explicit fan fiction about it on the internet.
Yes. So, Data is portrayed by the actor Brent Spiner, who is so fucking awesome. I got into this rabbit hole of just watching interviews with Brent Spiner. I think he's a fantastic actor. He's a hilarious man. Most of his roles that are not Data are very funny. So it's really interesting that he is someone who I would consider a comedic actor who is known for playing a character who is basically just unintentionally funny, which is very fascinating.
But I think that's why they cast him was because, like, to have someone in that role, you want someone who is going to be able to do this, like, subtle comedy thing. And if you have someone who's not funny at all and it's just, like, a very serious actor, then, like, Data would be kind of, like, boring, I think. And instead, Data is incredibly compelling because Brent Spiner is so funny and is able to bring this, like, subtle funniness to Data.
Well, I think that's the contrast between Data and Spock. And I forgot to mention this when we were talking about how there's so many hot women in The Next Generation. That's such a contrast to the original series where it's basically, let's get a bunch of hot guys on a spaceship. And they overcorrected a little too hard and it just became very homoerotic. But I'm also very attracted to everyone. So my, like, Star Trek fandomness, I'm a bit of a fake one because I love the original series. I love The Next Generation. I have basically not engaged with other Star Trek media. I'm a huge Scott Bakula fan, so eventually I do want to watch the series where he is the lead, but yeah, the original series cast of Star Trek, big bisexual energy from me, by me, for me. So one thing on Brent Spiner is that I desperately want to read his book because it sounds amazing. And I might do this if we do bonus content at any point. So basically, in October 2021, Spiner released a book called Fan Fiction, a Memoir, inspired by true events.
What?
So it's called Fan Fiction, a Memoir, inspired by true events. And it is a mixture of a memoir that takes place during the filming of the fourth season of Star Trek The Next Generation, as well as a fictitious detective story about Spiner dealing with a crazed murderous fan who claims to be the fictitious Lal, who's Data's android daughter. And the audiobook version features the entire cast of The Next Generation.
Wait, that's so cool.
It sounds awesome, and I would love to read it or listen to it at some point. And I also want to say that the fact that I am so attracted to Data, and I'm talking about Data on a podcast where we're talking about sort of unconventionally attractive characters, is actually not that hot of a take. Data is a sex symbol. Brent Spiner had the most fan mail of anyone in the cast, and it mostly came from women. He described the letters that he would get.
I love that you specified that. They were like, and it was not in a gay way. These were straight girls. Straight girls wanted to fuck that robot.
These were not men being like, oh yeah, great job, Brent. These were women who were basically writing letters to Data. So the quote that I have from Brent Spiner is he describes the letters he would get as romantic mail that was really written to Data. He's a really accessible personality. And he is, for all the reasons we described earlier.
I mean, I guess there's this element of like, well, he's not like other guys.
He's
not like other guys that you're gonna meet. You're different, Data. You're different than those other boys.
He is. He's funny and cute, and it makes me want to see his wiener. It just does.
Thwack!
Thwack!
The measure of a man. Thwack!
It's something about, I think his character embodies this way of looking at the world that is very pure and sweet. He's incredibly sensitive and thoughtful, and I get it. I'm on board. I would have been one of the girlies sending the letters.
I also think, like, and we've talked about this a lot, but like people who are socialized as women are forced to like introspect and empathize from a young age, and like because of the society makes us do it, whereas people who were socialized as boys tend to have to decide to do that when they get older because there's no external pressure on them to do that. And so I think the thing that is the allure of a robot man who's being like, I want to know how to feel, I want to know what it is to be a person, is like inherently he is like showing a lot of like empathetic and introspective qualities as he's examining what it means to be a person, as he's very attentively paying attention to you so he can learn more about how you're like physically functioning. Yeah. And so like I think that is part of the allure there, is like this like, oh, like a man who listens and cares and empathizes. And if you're a straight woman, you're probably dating a lot of straight men who are not so slay at that.
Yeah, unfortunate that the fact that man with empathy is something that makes a non-human character so desirable. That's crazy.
But it's true.
It's true.
It's real.
It's real. It's why I love him.
There's so often where it's like, I'll be talking to like one of my roommates and we'll be like, well, like you can tell he's actually listening to you. And it's like, why is that like a bar? Like, oh, well, you can tell he's actually listening to you. Like, I'm buying a gun.
As opposed to what? And I think that's the experience most women have with dating men, is that it's just guy who doesn't even want to be there, despite the fact that he asked to hang out with you.
Or like man who is like just waiting to talk about himself.
Yeah, yeah.
If you guys can't tell, I've been on Hinge in New York for a little too long, and it sucks ass real bad.
I have a man who has empathy. So Gene Roddenberry, who is the creator of Star Trek, basically told Brent Spiner that over the course of the series, Data was to become more and more like a human until the end of the show, when he would be very close, but still not quite there. That was the idea, and that was the way the writers took it. I think that that's a really interesting arc. Like, season 1 Data is not even that much like Data because he's very robotic. It's really in season 2 where I think his character comes into his own a little bit more and starts to explore these like really kind of cutesy concepts.
I agree. I feel like I remember watching the first season of the show and being like, okay, whatever. And then the second season, I was like, okay, what the fuck is going on with Data now? I was like, Data's being interesting and doing things I'm interested in now.
Yeah. Brent Spiner said that he felt that Data exhibited the Chaplin-esque characters of a sad, tragic clown, and that was the direction that he took Data in. To get into the role of Data, he used the characters of Robbie the robot from the film Forbidden Planet as a role model. I think that that's really interesting. Once again, I really think Brent Spiner is such a cool actor and really took Data in a direction that is so fascinating when he could have just been played so flat. He plays a character who does have a flat affect in a way that is incredibly dynamic, which I think is really a testament to his skill. So Data is pretty much on Spock's level as the most popular Star Trek character in the franchise. I just want to take a minute to say that I think that this is a really clever inversion of the Spock character. So if you know nothing about Star Trek, Spock is a character from the original series who is Vulcan, and Vulcan is a planet where people don't have emotions, but Spock's mother is human, his father is Vulcan, so he's sort of at war constantly with his emotive side while being raised in a society that is emotionally constipated. And basically,
I was just gonna say, and he's played by Leonard Nimoy in the original series, and they give him some weird ass eyebrows and some pointy ass ears, and they're like, "That's an alien."
That's an alien, and it's iconic. And he's played by Zachary Quinto in the J.J. Abrams movies, and Zachary Quinto is so cute, and I love him. So basically, Spock's character is really characterized by having emotions that he tries to deny, and Data is a contrast to that by actively searching for emotions that he does not have. I think these characters are really fascinating foils and mirrors to each other. I also want to say, Spiner also portrayed Data's manipulative and malevolent brother Lore, which is a role that he found much easier to play because the character was more like himself, because Lore is the older brother to Data, and basically he's broken because he has emotions, but only the fucked up ones.
It's like, I think they were like the malignant ones or whatever. Yeah.
There is a lot of fan fiction about Lore. There's a lot of fan fiction about fucking both Data and Lore, and the things you experience.
Internet, we have this written down as an episode idea in our episode notes. What's up with all the incest shit? Okay?
Is it?
All right?
Is it incest? If it's androids?
Yes!
They do refer to each other as brothers, but that's the thing.
Yes!
Because it's almost like, I think functionally they're basically clones? So is it incest if it's clones? I mean...
Listen. They're played by the same actor. Even if here's the thing. To get all anthropology about it, Laura and Data probably don't have an incest taboo. There probably is no incest taboo there. Yeah. But I know, I'm getting up. I'm getting up. If I was Henry Zabrowski, my shirt would be off. I know that the fucked up little people who are writing these fan fictions, and listen to me. I read so much Twilight fan fiction growing up that I can say this.
Weak.
Stop it. You are writing fan fiction about Data and Lore because you have, it's just like the fucking Judy Hopps things. There's something weird going on, and you need to go to therapy, and you need to unpack that. I say this as someone who was in the trenches of the supernatural fandom, who every time I saw Wincest fan fiction, I was like, hey, why do you want those brothers to fuck? Why do you want those brothers to fuck? Why do you want those brothers to fuck? So whether or not Data and Lore would think about it as incest, all of you people on AO3.com writing this goddamn fan fiction, I need you to look deep inside yourself and think about why you want those brothers to fuck.
But don't stop doing it, because I...
What? Aubrey!
All I'm saying is that there are some insanely hot fan fictions about an experience you have with Data and then a similar experience with Lore, and it's really hot.
But are they having sex together?
I have not read the ones where they have sex together.
That's fine.
They do exist. There are.
Yeah, I know they exist.
There are many that exist where they enjoy fucking each other. I enjoy the fan fictions where there is a woman who they share.
I'm on the ground. That took me. Why do you want those robot brothers to fuck each other? I need you to think about it. I need you to look deep inside yourself. For everyone's knowledge, I have a chair that's one of those like crisscross leg chairs, and I've been crawling around it like an animal for the past 5 minutes. Okay, I need you to look deep inside yourself and think about why you want to watch two Brent Spiners who are slightly different and thus not clones. It's like, okay, I saw Mickey 17 recently, and the whole...
Oh, you know there's some Mickey 17 porn.
And once again, some light Mickey 17 spoilers. Skip forward about 30 seconds if you don't want to hear them. And there's a whole thing in Mickey 17 where she's like, I should fuck both of you. And like a suggestion that they all have sex. And I'm like, listen, I love Robert Pattinson. I think the cognitive dissonance of two Robert Pattinsons that are technically the same Robert Pattinson, but one is slightly more evil than the other, would fuck with me. And when that scene happened in the movie, I was like, uh-oh, I don't want to see this. Please don't make me watch this, Bong Joon-ho. I don't want to watch this. And I'm glad I didn't have to. And I'm now out of breath. So, Aubrey, I would love to go into the next section of this so I can take a break.
My last little note here is just that Brent Spiner released an album of old pop standards from the 1930s and 40s, which he called Ol' Yellow Eyes Is Back, which is a reference to the fact that Data has yellow eyes, and it is a play on the name of the Frank Sinatra album, Ol' Blue Eyes Is Back. So I didn't listen to Brent Spiner doing some crooner classics. I wish I had. Again, Brent Spiner, come on this podcast. I also listened to a bunch of interviews where Brent Spiner is on like Nerd Boy podcasts with guys who are just annoying. And I'm like, no. Come here. Be with the ladies.
We're so cool and nice. We're so cool and nice.
So I do have a Reddit call and response that I'm going to do with you where I'm going to read a question from a Reddit thread in my best little Star Trek Reddit nerd voice, and then I would like you to do the response.
And who's the response?
You will do the response, and I will do the question.
Oh, are these both annoying little Reddit boys?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's good. I both the incest AO3 girlies and the annoying Reddit men will catch strays today. The two wolves that live inside Aubrey.
The two wolves that live inside me. I am a Redditor.
I am too. Me and Aubrey are both addicted to r/conservative.
We are.
Me and Aubrey are both addicted to lurking and r/conservative. And I'm always like, why do you guys always think you're getting brigaded as I'm sitting there reading their...
Well, I'm brigading them.
Well, I'm being like, well, this is fucked up what you're all saying. I would never comment. I would never invade their little safe space. Okay, conservative snowflakes. I'm not invading your safe space. I'm just reading your safe space. Okay,
so I sent you the response that I'm going to have you read, but I'm going to read the question first.
Oh my god, I'm so tired. Okay.
Okay, hold on. So the title of it is, what would a sexual encounter with Data really be like? Let's just say that you're Ensign Jenna DeSora and about to get it on with Data for the first time. Yes, it can be inferred from canon that they were never intimate, but stick with me here as this is a hypothetical example, ... Behind closed doors, what would a sexual encounter with Data really be like? Let's get into some detail here. Indulge me. A few thoughts. First bullet point. What would Data's partner, a human female, need to do to initiate sex? We're talking pre-emotion chip here. Data isn't good with nonverbal cues, so I'm guessing you would need to explicitly request that you commence sex. Second bullet point. Assuming Data agrees to sex, you might need to further specify which of his, quote, multiple techniques you would like. Given that he has no sexual needs or desires of his own per se, this is basically all about what you want. Third bullet point. In other words, I'm assuming Data can't emulate the natural and subtle process through which two humans normally start fucking, polywater intoxication notwithstanding. But anyhow, eventually he gets his uniform off and you've selected from his menu of techniques, foreplay, missionary, cowgirl, doggy style, some weird Russian stuff, or whatever you like. And so you start fucking. Questions. Bullet point 1.
Before we move on, this person has never had sex. I just want to be clear, from some Russian stuff, whatever you're in, that person has never had sex. Okay, keep going.
This Reddit thread is also from 11 years ago.
Maybe they've had sex now, but at that point they have not had sex.
And their account is now deleted.
Because they had sex.
Questions. Bullet point 1. What does Data's penis look and feel like? We know he is we know he is fully functional, so I guess he has microservers to get an erection. But does he have balls? Does it feel all natural? Does it feel all natural? Does Data have body heat, or does he feel like a cold, clammy mannequin against your bosom? Second bullet point. Can Data experience
Bosom? This person has never touched a human woman. And I'm saying person, this could be a woman writing this, but this person has never like, if a person grabbed my tit, which I'm holding right now, and went, your bosom, I would leave the encounter.
Second bullet point. Can Data experience anything like an orgasm? Can he ejaculate? If so, what does he ejaculate? It looks like he has some sort of saliva and tears, so I guess it's possible he can produce other fluids. Third bullet point. In summary, is fucking Data basically like using a fancy sentient male blow-up doll, or are there possible subtleties and nuances to the experiences that I've overlooked? And I want to just preface before you give your response, Mackenna. Okay. This thread has 140 upvotes and 124 comments. The response that you're about to read has 126 upvotes.
That's awesome. I'll be performing the role of Giga Chad, Redditor, who answered this question. Remember, he was fully intimate with Tasha Yar. We're led to believe she was his first, and it's strongly implied that he got it on with the Borg Queen, which is super ick to think about. To your questions, short of the pale color, there's no particular reason his dick wouldn't look and feel perfectly normal. I can't remember anyone commenting on Data feeling cold at any point. Even if so, he could hypothetically adjust his own body temperature at will. If Soong was weird enough to make a sexually functional robot, he'd be remiss not to let that robot ejaculate. I would guess it's some sort of inert fluid engineered to... Yes, he would be remiss not to let that robot ejaculate. I would guess it's some sort of inert fluid engineered to resemble semen, which raises the interesting possibility that his testes regenerate fake semen as needed, implying he has balls. Maybe he imbibes liquid specifically for this, and the other incidental liquids he produces, saliva and tears, as you said. As to what it's like, I guess it's extremely clumsy and awkward, just like all the other times Data tries to be human. He'd have no aggression or passion, so he'd be a very polite and compliant blow-up doll who'd probably be extra cautious about injuring you. If he went in jackhammer mode, he could easily cause serious injury. I laugh to think about his attempts at talking dirty talking.
So that's a normal conversation between two straight men.
We don't know that! No, we don't know that.
These are probably two autistic women. This is honestly not that far from a conversation you and I would just have.
Yes, except for we would never say bosom or imbibe.
I think I've told you this before, but the implying that Data has balls, when I was a kid and I didn't understand what circumcision was, I thought it meant that the balls get cut off. So I thought that if a man was circumcised that he had no balls.
You thought he was getting like the goat thing where they wrap the thing around the balls to make them fall off.
Yeah, because I heard it in the context of like, oh, like if you're uncircumcised, it like feels better, and I was like, I guess like if you have no balls, like I guess it just keeps going in. I don't know.
If you have no balls, I was gonna make like you're basically I used all my energy talking about incest earlier. Now I can't do jokes anymore.
Yeah, so that was my last note on Data, was this is what the Star Trek community talks about as it relates to Data's sexual functioning. So there's your answer for anyone who's wondering if Data has a dick and balls. He does. He likely has semen, or a semen-like fluid as well. So
sorry, Aubrey. Direct quote from our Redditor friend. Inert fluid engineered to resemble semen. Thank you very much.
Yeah. There are other examples of what I consider a hot android man. The other that is really salient for me is Bishop from Aliens. I watched Aliens last night, and I forgot how little Bishop is actually in the movie.
Hey, but he lives large in your heart and mind and other places.
He lives so large in my heart that I really thought he was a much more major character than he is. He really is not. He's very plot important, but he does not actually have all that many scenes. So I watched a movie that is like 2 hours and 20 minutes for what is probably 15 minutes of content.
But really important 15 minutes.
To my sexual identity, yes.
Yes!
What I think is interesting with Bishop, so I'm not going to describe the plot of Aliens. It's, the boys are back in town, there's another alien, and there's stuff that's going to happen around that. And basically, Bishop is a calm and trustworthy figure in a mob of characters who are panicking and distrustful of each other. He's played by the actor Henriksen, and basically he's a contrast to the android character in the film Alien, who is bad and evil. And in the second film, Ripley meets Bishop and is like, fuck you, you piece of shit android. And Bishop is like, hey, not all androids. And he is not all.
No freedom till we're equal. Damn right, I support it.
And he is actually not all androids, because ultimately he does a lot of good things and does some self-sacrifice that allows Ripley to survive. It is honestly, their dynamic is low-key an arc about how a good man can heal you a little bit.
Aubrey, you like a white man that looks a very specific way.
Describe it to me.
The actor who plays Bishop and Brent, and maybe this is just that they cast android men very specifically, but like both like sort of like thin faces, long nose. It's not a prominent nose, but it's just long, like defined jaw, but not a scary jaw. Because we all know what a scary jaw looks like. Brown hair, like it's just they got a similar energy.
It's true. So my husband is not white. My taste in white men specifically is I mean, in general, I love men with big prominent noses. I always have. I don't really know why. Like, one of my big crushes is Pete Townsend from The Who. I find him so attractive, and he just has a big old honker. Same with Ringo Starr from the Beatles. Yeah, my man's Adrian Brody. I love a big old nose. It makes me feel good. I like how it sits on the face. But yeah, I also think that that's interesting when we think about what kinds of men are portrayed as androids.
Yeah.
It is usually men who are not Terminator style, right? It's men who are really kind of thin, proper, prim. I think that that's really interesting too, especially when you contrast it with something like Terminator, where it is a giant man.
Yeah.
So my favorite scene with Bishop is when he's introduced and they call him an android, and he just goes, I prefer the term artificial person, because god damn it, use the language that he identifies with, everybody.
Yes.
I think Lance Henriksen is also...
Let the people in the community decide what they want to be called.
Yes. And I think Lance Henriksen is also a really fantastic actor. I think his portrayal of Bishop is really cool because it is a contrast to a portrayal like Data, where Data cannot emote. Bishop is really not super robotic in nature. You would think that he's just a soft-spoken man. And that's why when he's introduced, it's sort of a reveal that he's an android, because he's not just walking in like beep, boop, beep. You're just thinking, that's a cool dude who does a cool knife trick. And then he's an android. Other examples that I think exist in media are Vision from the Marvel universe, David from...
That can I say?
Yeah.
Can I say? Vision's fine as hell.
Vision is sexy as fuck.
Vision, like, I would make all of the choices Wanda made.
Yeah.
And I mean all of them. If you've seen... I actually have not seen the one where apparently she's evil now, so I don't want to say that in case she's doing, like, truly heinous shit, but... I would make all the choices Wanda made surrounding Vision.
But I think Paul Bettany fits into that same character.
Yeah, he fits that same exact vibe.
Yeah, where he's a thin man who has this, I guess we would call it like a robotic appearance, where he's not overly built. He looks like He's got a robo-skeleton underneath. Other examples are David from Prometheus. Remember when Prometheus came out and it was like a twist that Prometheus is in the Alien universe?
Yes.
This is just my soapbox where I want to say that James Cameron is a director who constantly disappoints me because I love his filmography before Avatar, but now he's decided that he's just committing the rest of his years to making as many Avatar movies as this world can handle. Like, why is there an Avatar land at Disney World?
I don't care. I literally, I saw the first Avatar movie and I was like, oh, who cares? And it's like, I literally was like, if that's what he wants to do with his life, like, I'm like, sure. Like, you made a bad movie that had some cool technology for the time, and so everyone like lost their shit over it. And it's like, you made bad Pocahontas.
Yeah. And it's like, you made Titanic. Like, I know you can make a good movie.
Yeah. But like, I think that we've seen that these male directors who like do big epic movies get worse at making movies over time. Because I think about like Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
When's the last time you liked a Ridley Scott movie?
I know. Same with Ridley Scott. I do feel like when I was saying stuff, I made it sound like I did not know that Ridley Scott directed Prometheus. I know Ridley Scott directed Prometheus, but James Cameron directed Aliens. I just want to say that. Don't send us comments about how I don't know anything. Ridley Scott.
Get in the comments. Yell at Aubrey. Yell at her.
Ridley Scott is also a director who disappoints me constantly because I think that he thinks he is God, and he's not.
Michael Fassbender is a little bit more like, I think he's a little bit more traditionally handsome than like the other guys that we've been talking about, but he still does have that like he's svelte. He's not like a huge jack dude. He's like a svelte dude with like bigger ears. Like all these guys also have like kind of big ears.
Yeah.
And then like smaller eyes and a bigger nose. Like all these white men look the same and have all played robots.
I like it. I think his portrait... Yeah, I think normally Michael Fassbender is more conventionally attractive. I think David is a super conventionally attractive...
He's skinny in that movie, though, too. He's, like, very skinny.
That's an interesting thing that I mean, I guess it would make sense, because what purpose would a robot need for muscle?
For body... And, like, muscle or body fat. Like, they wouldn't really need either of those things. Hey, Aubrey.
Hey, Mackenna.
So I'm looking here at our little timer on our, hey, podcastle.ai. We're using something that's .ai to record this. That's so funny. Where are you at in the outline?
You know, I think that this is going to be a 2-part series where in the first part, we talk about how hot Data from Star Trek is, and in the second part, I tell you what autism is, and we find out whether I have it.
Yeah, so remember that promise we made at the beginning of the episode that Aubrey was going to take the RAD's autism inventory at the end of this episode? Well, the problem is that I got on my chair and stuck my leg in the air, this is not a joke, and started screaming about incest for too long. And we also went on a way too long tangent about young Sheldon. So we'll be back next time to talk about autism.
Yes.
Aubrey, before we leave this first chapter, anything that you would like to say to Data from Star Trek?
I love you with all my heart in ways that you physically cannot comprehend.
Oh, wait, I have a question for you. Yeah. I can't believe I haven't asked this yet. Does the Tin Man do it for you?
Of all of them? Yes. Between the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, and the Tin Man does do it for me.
Because I was thinking about, like, a really fucked up way they could have ended Data's character arc is if they, like, took a human heart and just shoved it into his chest. And I was like, whoa.
Which of them does it for you? Are you a Scarecrow girly?
None of them do it for me.
This is what drives me insane with you, is that you're telling me that you don't watch The Wizard of Oz and think, who's fuckable here?
No!
That's how I approach every piece of media. Quite frankly, every person I interact with.
It's not the Cowardly Lion, okay? Scarecrow.
You might be a Scarecrow girly.
Well, I played the Scarecrow, so that would feel weird, I think. I played the Scarecrow when I was in the 7th grade. No, I don't like, I don't...
The Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz looks like my dad.
No, neither of them. Who does it for me is Jonathan Bailey in the Wicked movie.
Boo, boo, normie answer.
Bye!
Bye!
have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss, send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.